Colleges and the union representing teachers are going back to the bargaining table today in the middle of the strike. 500,000 students, and they want to have their say. Our Marianne Dimain is outside George Brown College with today's developments. Marianne.
Good morning, Carolyn. And really, it's a ray of hope for students who have not been able to walk through college doors like the ones here at George Brown to go to class ever since the strike began. But both sides returning back to the bargaining table is the first time that's happened since talks broke down between both sides in mid-October. But even with these new developments, students are still outside of class and fear that they could lose a semester. So at 9 o'clock this morning, a bunch of students will be gathering at Queen's Park to hold a tuition refund rally, calling on the province to refund any money that they've lost as a result of this strike, and to remind the province that it's the students who are paying for their education. Now, joining them at Queen's Park a little later on in the afternoon will be striking faculty workers. They're holding a rally at Queen's Park at 12 o'clock this afternoon. Even though both sides are back at the bargaining table, they are continuing to have their rally as it was already scheduled for several days now. But first, they'll be gathering at 10 o'clock in the morning outside the Minister of Advanced Education's office at Bay and Wellesley. We know that since the strike began, it affects more than 12,000 college faculty at 24 colleges all across the province. Since this all began, they've been calling for a fair contract and for workplace job security, and among other things, they also want to match the number of full-time staff with those on contract. So this is what we'll be hearing from striking faculty workers who will be at the rally this morning and into the afternoon as well. We'll be talking to students once they start to gather at Queen's Park later this morning. But for now, Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Marianne. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning show. Colleges and the union representing teachers are going back to the bargaining table today in the middle of the strike. 500,000 students, and they want to have a say. Our Marianne Dimain is outside George Brown College with the latest on developments. Marianne.
Good morning, Carolyn. And it's those students who have not been able to go to classes at colleges like George Brown, but at 24 colleges all across the province because of the strike. But now a ray of hope now that both sides are meeting back at the bargaining table after talks broke down in mid-October. But of course, it's still a concern for students who are fearing that they may lose this semester. So at 9 o'clock this morning, they'll actually be gathering at Queen's Park for a rally demanding for the province to refund tuition. They want to remind the province that it's the students who pay for the education, and they want the money back for all of the class time lost as a result of this strike. So again, that starts at 9 o'clock, but at 12 o'clock, they'll actually be joined by striking faculty workers who will also be going to Queen's Park. Hundreds of faculty workers are expected to join in this from all across the province, as well as supporters from across the GTA. They'll first be meeting, though, at 9:30 outside of the Minister of Advanced Education's office at Bay and Wellesley, and then they'll walk to Queen's Park. So there's going to be a huge crowd outside of Queen's Park later this morning and into the afternoon, trying to send a message to the province that the students want to get back into class. If they don't, they want their money reimbursed. And really, faculty want to get back on the job. They want to reach a fair deal. We know that some of the sticking points here are working conditions. They want job security. Whether they'll be working that out at the bargaining table, of course, we'll still have to wait and see. But at least some kind of positive developments in this that has some students hopeful. We will, of course, be here throughout the morning, and then we're going to move to Queen's Park to talk to some students. We'll have that for you throughout the morning, Carolyn. But for now, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Marianne. Colleges and the union representing teachers are going back to the bargaining table today, now in the middle of the strike. 500,000 students, and they want to have a say. Our Marianne Dimain is outside George Brown College with more on the developments. Marianne.
Good morning, Carolyn. And college campuses like this one downtown at George Brown have been pretty much a ghost town since the strike began. Classes have been canceled, and that is why many students have been worried since mid-October, wondering what this means for their school year. But now these new developments that both sides are going back to the bargaining table is a ray of hope for students who just want to get back in the classroom. But still, every day that passes means that all of that money they paid for class is not going towards an actual education. So they are holding a rally at Queen's Park at 9 o'clock this morning, calling for a refund on their tuition for all of those days lost in the class since the start of the strike and since talks broke down between both sides on October 16th. Now, also joining them at Queen's Park later in the afternoon will be striking faculty workers. That's a rally that was planned already before it was announced that both sides were returning to the bargaining table. They'll be at Queen's Park at noon, but prior to that, at around 9:30 this morning, they'll first gather at Bay and Wellesley outside of the office of the Minister of Advanced Education, and then they'll walk en masse to Queen's Park. Park. Hundreds of faculty from striking colleges all across Ontario or rather 24 colleges all across Ontario are expected to be there. We are going to move to Queen's Park so we can kind of get the crowds gathering this morning, but there will be a lot of voices who will want to be heard, students who want to get back in the classroom and striking faculty workers who just want a fair deal. Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning show. Colleges and the union representing teachers are going back to the bargaining table today in the middle of the strike. 500,000 students, and they want to have a say. Our Marianne Dimain with more on the developments.
Students have been wanting to go into their college campuses to go to class, but they haven't been able to since classes have been canceled since the strike began October 16th. Both sides now back at the bargaining table. It's the first time they've been back to the bargaining table since talks broke down in the middle of October. But still, students are worried about what this means for their school year. They're worried that they'll lose this semester and they want their money back. So they're holding a tuition refund rally at Queen's Park at 9 o'clock this morning, calling on the province to give the money back that they paid for classes that they haven't been able to attend because of this strike, and they want to remind the province and politicians as well as colleges and staff that it is the students who are paying for the education. Now, also joining them at Queen's Park later in the afternoon will be striking faculty workers. 12,000 people have been on strike at 24 colleges across the province. Hundreds from across the GTA and across the province are expected to descend upon Queen's Park at around noon, but first they'll be meeting at Bay and Wellesley outside of the office of the Minister of Advanced Education, and then from there they'll all walk en masse to Queen's Park. Of course, they'll have a lot of voices that want to be heard. They want a fair contract. Students want to get back to class and of course have their money refunded. We will be moving to Queen's Park now, and we'll have the crowds gathering ahead of those rallies planned. But for now, Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Marianne. Colleges and the union representing teachers are going back to the bargaining table today in the middle of the strike. 500,000 students, and they want to have a say. Our Marianne Dimain is outside Queen's Park with more on the developments. Marianne.
Good morning, Carolyn. And Queen's Park here is rainy, but it is going to be a busy place today. Hundreds of students are expected to come here this morning for a tuition refund rally, because as we know, since the strike began, when talks broke down in mid-October, classes were canceled at 24 colleges all across the province, which means hundreds of thousands of students have been literally left in limbo, wondering what this means for their semester. Earlier this week, the union representing the striking workers says they are now entering a spot where it seems like the semester could be threatened. As we know also, though, as of now, there have been no lost school years as a result of job action on college campuses, but that's not stopping students from coming here, calling out to the province to ask for their money to be refunded for classes that they were not able to take as a result of this strike. They'll be here at around 9 o'clock this morning, but then at around noon they'll be joined by striking faculty workers from the colleges. 12,000 college workers have been on strike since mid-October. They're going to be gathering outside of the Ministry of Advanced Education at around 9:30 this morning, and then they'll make their way here at Queen's Park to join the students. So it'll be a very busy day here at Queen's Park. We will of course be here throughout the morning to talk to students to find out what they want the province to hear from them, and how optimistic they're feeling at this point now, hearing that both sides are back at the bargaining table. And of course we'll hear from OPSU just what they want to know, what they would rather see, coming out of this. Of course, they've been saying from the very beginning that they just want a fair deal and workplace and job security. So that's all happening here, and we'll of course have this on the noon. But for now, Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Marianne.